After 6 days of testimony, a Chicago jury has found actor Jussie Smollett guilty on 5 of 6 counts for staging a hate crime against himself. The Empire actor faces up to 3 years in prison for filing a false police report stemming from an alleged homophobic and racially motivated assault in 2019. While Smollett had been found guilty of the class 4 felonies, his clean criminal record will likely weigh in his favor. The highly politicized case garnered national attention from the outset. Smollett's claims were thoroughly scrutinized by legal experts and in the court of public opinion. After the verdict, prosecutors told reporters that the Chicago Police Department was vindicated, but the actor's defense attorney says Smollett is 100% innocent and that he would appeal because he is committed to clearing his name. Joining us to discuss is chairwoman of the Rainbow Push Coalition, C.K. Hoffler. So, C.K., what do you make of this verdict?
Well, good evening, Charles. I think this verdict is distressing on many levels. Certainly, as a trial lawyer, I respect the jury's decision. When the jury speaks, we have to listen. So I just want to start by saying that. But even though, just as with any case, I respect the jury's decision, I think that there are a lot of aspects of this particular verdict that are troubling because of the information surrounding this case that the public is not aware of. Perhaps. For one, because there weren't cameras in the courtroom, no cameras were allowed in the courtroom, we were not able to see live some of the testimony and developments in this case. We were not able to grasp what the jury heard and what the jury didn't hear. We do know, and I am told, and I can only say that I'm told from what I understand to be the case, that the judge picked the jury. So typically in a state court case, not a federal case, but a state court case like this one, the prosecutor and the defense, as we've seen in so many other cases, pick the jury. In federal court, you do see the judge pick the jury, they conduct voir dire, ask the questions. But in this case, it's my understanding that the judge is the one that asks the questions. The reason why that's problematic, in a case like this, you want to be able to delve into people's backgrounds, how they feel about a multiplicity of issues that are involved in this case. That didn't happen. Neither the prosecution or the defense, as I understood it, were able to speak to the jury in picking the jury. That's an issue.
Right. Let me step in and ask a question here. 1 second before you go to your second point. I promise I'll let you do that. You said you respected the jury and their decision, but do you believe that they came to the right verdict?
I'm not saying I believe they came to the right verdict. I don't like the verdict because I think that a lot of evidence, perhaps, that I understood existed was not presented to the jury. I just respect what the jury says, no matter what. So
why wouldn't the defense present information that would be exculpatory?
Well, it's not what the defense would present. You know, judges decide what evidence goes to the jury and what comes in and what doesn't come in. There may have been, let me give an example, information relative to some of the police officers that conducted the investigation relative to Jussie Smollett. There's certainly an accusation from the defense standpoint that there was corruption, that the police coerced the two brothers into the statement that they made, that there was a lot of corruption that took place. I don't know if there was or there wasn't, but the jury was not entitled to hear any evidence relative to that. So those are decisions that the judge would make. Is that evidence relevant to this case? Yes or no? There are a lot of decisions that are made before a trial or during a trial that where things never get to the jury. That's why I'm saying, do I feel this is a just verdict? I feel that Jussie Smollett didn't have his day in court. So, but I do respect the jury's decision. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of other information in this case that troubles me, that perturbs me. For instance, there's an allegation that the judge lunged at one of the defense attorneys. Now, I've been an attorney for 35 years, and I've tried a lot of high-profile, intense cases where we were going at it. I've never, ever had the experience or heard of a judge lunging at any attorney. Yelling, yes. Even heard of one judge throwing books, but not lunging. That's of concern to me. So things of that nature.
I get your concerns about what has happened in the courtroom. I guess I'm really interested in your take of the evidence that we knew about, right? So I mean, the one thing that threw me from the very beginning. First of all, it was freezing in Chicago, and I don't know if you've ever lived in the Midwest, but I've lived in Detroit, And one thing that is you can't go outside without all of your skin covered because your skin will literally freeze. I didn't know. I'm from Louisiana. Didn't know that was a thing. It is a thing. So you cover every inch of your skin when you go out. So this idea of being out with nothing on your face so that people could see you and say, oh, there's the guy from Empire. All of that just to me was like, okay, I need somebody to explain to me how Jussie's skin is not like the rest of our skin and you can just be out in the freezing elements in the middle of the night with nothing on your face, so enough so that people could recognize you from afar. So there was a lot of the evidence that, to me, I couldn't figure out how it made sense in the story that he was telling. At first he said that they were white people, then he said they were light-skinned people, and then I see the two people who he said did it, and I'm like, nah, those are not light-skinned people. There's no way you could mistake them for light or white or anything. So just based on the evidence that was presented, what do you think the case was here?
Well, I think based on the evidence that was presented, what the jury heard, I can see why they reached the verdict that they reached. Do I like them reaching the verdict that they reached? Did I wish that there was greater evidence presented? I did wish that there was greater evidence presented, but it did seem like there were some things that didn't add up. And when things don't add up, sometimes it's because you can't present some evidence. And so that's the point that I'm making. But there were a lot of inconsistencies, but the state has the burden of proof. The defense is defending the defendant. So this jury must have felt that the state met its burden beyond reasonable doubt. And I think they held any inconsistencies against Jussie because I felt that they didn't feel that his story added up based on what they heard. But I think there's another factor. What do we know about these jurors? Were they probed into whether they had bias about certain things? When you don't have the ability to question jurors, and I know this as a trial lawyer, you feel like you're disadvantaged because, again, when it's a question of someone's life or liberty at stake, you want to know how they feel about issues. How do they feel about, are they homophobic? How do they feel about people in Hollywood, actors? All of the things, all of the issues surrounding this case. And I think that perhaps there was some disadvantage that the defense had going into this case. And I just wish that had been fleshed out a little bit more.
C.K. Hoffler, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Very illuminating.